Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Emmanuel Toye Shobande, a strategic leadership expert, executive coach, and award-winning author. You're watching The Leadership Factory, a space where we explore practical, research-driven insights that help leaders think clearly, lead wisely, and build healthier organizations. Today, we are diving into something many leaders experience, but surprisingly, very few people talk about openly. The title of today's conversation is The Leadership Conversations Executives Cannot Ignore. If you observe leadership discussions over time, something interesting becomes clear. Every year, new leadership books appear. New frameworks emerge and new buzzwords circulate through boardrooms and conferences. But when executives gather privately, whether in strategy sessions, executive retreats, or even informal hallway conversations, the issues they discuss are often surprisingly consistent. Senior leaders rarely spend their time debating theoretical leadership models. Instead, their conversations revolve around very practical realities that determine whether organizations succeed or struggle. They talk about things like trust, decision making, organizational culture, accountability, and the psychological dynamics between leaders and the people they lead. You see, over the years, certain leadership conversations repeatedly capture the attention of executives across industries. These topics spread quickly in boardrooms and professional circles because they address challenges leaders immediately recognize. Let's explore some of those leadership conversations. First, many leaders assume something that seems logical. They believe that competence automatically earns them trust. But employees rarely evaluate leadership solely based on technical expertise. People watch behavior. They watch the behavior of the leader. They observe how leaders respond under pressure. They notice how leaders treat people. They pay attention to whether decisions reflect fairness or transparency. So, when trust erodes in an organization, it is usually not because leaders lack intelligence. More often, trust erodes because small, everyday leadership habits gradually weaken credibility. Number two, the hidden cost of micromanagement. Micromanagement often appears to be a strategy designed to ensure performance, but in many cases, it reveals something deeper. It may reflect uncertainty about outcomes or a lack of trust within the team. And over time, excessive control produces unintended consequences. It discourages initiative. It weakens accountability. And capable professionals slowly become passive followers. Eventually, organizations discover something troubling. And what is that? Productivity may remain stable, but innovation quietly disappears. Number three, authority is no longer enough. In earlier organizational structures, hierarchy itself carried significant influence. But in today's workforce, the workforce evaluates leadership differently. Employees respond less to titles. They respond more to authenticity, to clarity, and to fairness. So, leaders who rely only on authority often discover something important. Compliance is not the same thing as commitment. Real influence must be earned repeatedly through conduct and credibility. The leadership blind spot. As leaders rise within organizations, something subtle begins to happen. Fewer people challenge their thinking. Feedback becomes filtered. Disagreement becomes cautious. And over time, leaders can become isolated from the very perspectives they need most. The most effective executives understand these dynamics. So, they intentionally create environments where honest disagreement is safe rather than discouraged. Now, respect and trust are not the same. So, many organizations confuse respect with trust. Respect often comes from expertise, experience, or positions of authority. But trust develops through consistency, fairness, and emotional intelligence. Teams may respect a leader's authority while quietly withholding their full engagement. And that difference often determines whether an organization operates with genuine energy or simply with just discipline. Another point is culture is shaped by behavior. Organizations spend significant effort defining mission statements and core values. But employees evaluate culture in a much simpler way. They watch leadership behavior. When leaders demonstrate collaboration, transparency, and accountability, those patterns spread across the organization. But when leaders tolerate inconsistency or favoritism, those patterns spread as well. Culture rarely follows what leaders announce or write in a memo. It follows what leaders repeatedly practice consciously and unconsciously. Another point is the promotion mistake. One of the most common leadership mistakes happened during promotion decisions. Organizations reward high-performing individuals by placing them in leadership roles. But excellence in personal performance does not automatically translate into the ability to develop others. Leadership requires an entirely different set of competencies. Things like listening, active listening, coaching, communication, and strategic patience. The communication gap here for most leaders, especially when executives believe they communicate effectively because they communicate frequently, that sometimes can lead to a gap. But employees judge communication differently. They look for clarity. They look for transparency. And when people do not understand the reasoning behind the decisions of leadership, they begin filling the gap with assumptions. Effective leaders therefore communicate not just what decisions are made, but why those decisions are made. Let's talk about the speed of decisions. Modern organizations value decisiveness and efficiency. But employees sometimes interpret leadership speed differently. When decisions affecting people happen too quickly, particularly during a change, they may appear dismissive if the reasoning is unclear, if the rationale is unclear. Interestingly, leaders who slow down enough to explain the why behind the decisions often build greater trust than those who simply move fast. And the next point is the burnout. We hear a lot about employee burnout, but leadership burnout is also becoming increasingly common. Executives operate under constant pressure to deliver results while maintaining morale and navigating organizational complexity. When leaders neglect their own resilience, they eventually struggle to provide clarity and stability for others. And consequently, they fail to provide psychological safety. Teams perform best when individuals feel safe expressing their ideas. When they feel safe raising concerns. They feel safe challenging assumptions. But when psychological safety disappears, something predictable happens. Fewer mistakes are reported. Fewer ideas are shared. And fewer problems are addressed early enough to profile solutions. So leaders who create safe environments for dialogue often discover that innovation increases naturally as a result. And the question is, what is your leadership legacy? Eventually, every leader encounters a deeper question. A question that goes beyond strategy and performance metrics. The question is this: what will remain after my leadership tenure ends? Some leaders build systems that depend entirely on their presence. Others build people and organizational culture that continued thriving long after they have left. Leadership legacy is ultimately measured not only by results, but by what the leader leaves behind. At this point, I need you to engage in some personal reflection. These leadership conversations resonate widely because they address the human realities of leadership. Yes, strategy matters. Yes, technology matters. Yes, market conditions matter. But leadership behavior ultimately determines how people respond to those conditions. Executives who reflect on these questions often discover something important. They discover that leadership effectiveness rarely comes from discovering entirely new ideas. Rather, it comes from applying enduring principles with discipline, humility, and self-awareness. The organizations that thrive over time are led by people who understand that leadership is not simply about directing performance. It is about creating conditions where people can contribute their best thinking, their best energy, and their best judgment. And in the end, that remains the quiet but enduring work of leadership. Thank you for spending this time with me. And remember, leadership is not just about making decisions. It is about creating environments where truth can be heard, trust can grow, people can thrive. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your reflections. You can connect with me at contactme@toyeshobande.com. And stay tuned, because in our next episode, we will continue exploring the deeper human realities that shape leadership effectiveness. And until then, keep leading with clarity, courage, and wisdom. Thank you. Bye.